Hello and very good afternoon to all bankers joining from Cambodia to the webinar organized by Team Cognext and Aptiva in partnership with Softflex. Mr. James is very instrumental on the field talking to you and making everyone known about this webinar. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Kedar Patkar and I lead business in ASEAN countries for Cognext Analytics. Cognext Analytics is a new age software solutions company for banking and financial services in risk management and regulatory compliances associated with risk, finance, and treasury. We have been in industry for close to 2 decades now and globally established ourselves. And we are very keenly looking at Cambodia market because we see that there's a lot of more to happen in terms of risk management and regulatory compliances. This is just a beginning. One of the beginning approach which is taken today is IFRS 9, which has been guided some time back, and it has been practiced at various ways in Cambodian market. However, it has been observed that once you start doing it manually, over a period of time, you realize that you need automation in IFRS 9. While you do automation, what kind of key measures you should take, okay, and how you should automate the IFRS 9, which is IFRS 9 for Cambodia. That is the session for today, right? Today for us, Mr. Vivek Gupta, he's a product head for Cognext Analytics. He's instrumental in developing several solutions, including IFRS 9 solution, and it has been implemented under his leadership at various customer places. So he will take us through his understanding, experience, insights, how one should go about automating IFRS 9, and what are the key things which need to be taken into consideration. So before I hand it over to Vivek, let me just tell you about the timelines of this webinar. This webinar is for 1 hour in total. We have 55 minutes still left. You can raise hand anytime or ask the question or type the question in the chat window. In case, even if you do it in the middle, we will prefer to take it towards the end. If possible, we will take it in between. In case anyone is not able to still hear or facing any challenges, you can locally reach out to James. We will try to resolve it. With this short context, let me hand it over to Vivek. Vivek, over to you.
Thanks, Kedar. Kedar, I'm not able to switch on my video. Can you please enable that? Thanks. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Let me share my screen and let's get started. I hope my screen is visible. Kedar, can you give me a confirmation?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. So the agenda for today is that what are the key ingredients of a successful automation when the bank is looking for implementation of IFRS 9 solution with regards to the overall journey which they want to capture from the platform. So I'll be focusing on that today, and essentially there are 3 parts which I'll be covering in the next 40-45 minutes, which will revolve around like what are the various components with regards to IFRS 9 requirements with regards to the Cambodian market, as well as an overall industry best practices, which the bank needs to basically think about when they are looking at the automation for IFRS 9. The second is what is the expectation which are there from the different stakeholders as a part of the overall IFRS 9 journey. We know the finance team, the risk team, the reporting team, all 3 of them work together in a very coherent manner. So what is the right expectations from the 3 different individual teams, and how the automation should support each individual requirement. And the third is how you should go about, in selecting the most appropriate strategy for your automation requirement. Just before I go ahead, for everyone's clarity, the webinar is not about to cover in depth what is IFRS 9. The webinar is not suited for somebody who is not aware of what is the requirement or the mandate for IFRS 9 from the Cambodian regulatory body or as an overall principle. And if somebody is looking for, in order to understand in more detail, what is the accounting treatments related to IFRS 9, or what are the various methodologies, approaches, if you want to get into the details of those, then we have another webinar which is being scheduled. We can share the details of those, but I'll be largely focusing on the automation side of the overall IFRS 9 story. So as I move ahead, let me first capture what is a brief overview of an IFRS 9 platform. So there are various moving parts of the IFRS 9 platform, which I have showcased out here. So there are roughly around 7 different components, which constitutes the the periphery of an overall IFRS 9 platform. On the top, you can see there are different data feeds, which is needed for doing the computations for IFRS 9. So the first thing is the journey starts from the accounting, basically classification and measurement of the entire exposures basis, the business model identification, performing the SPPI testing, that how the entire exposures will be categorized into 3 categories, which is your amortized cost, FVOCI, and FEPL. Essentially, the entire expected credit loss or the journey subsequent to this, that is to be covered by these 2 areas, which is your amortized cost and the FVOCI category. Again, as a part of the FVOCI category, only the debt securities on which the which falls under this category or falls under the purview for IFRS 9 ECL. Now, this goes further under your overall stage assessment framework, which is what we call as the credit deterioration framework, or which is being classified as SICR, significant increase in credit risk. So essentially, as a part of this, what we are trying to capture is IFRS 9 mandates that all the exposures have to be classified under 3 different categories or the buckets of riskiness. One is your stage 1 assets, and stage 2 and stage 3 asset. Now, stage 1 and stage 2 are performing, whereas stage 3 is a non-performing asset. How a stage 1 and stage 2 is to be determined, that computation has to happen inside the platform. So there could be various quantitative, there could be various qualitative criteria. So basis that, for example, your days past use greater than 30 can trigger off that an exposure is moving to stage 1 criteria. Stage 2 criteria. So now all of this is to be baked inside the solution, and then on top of that, there has to be a manual override which has to be allowed for the end user, where he can choose that, for example, due to any reason a customer has been classified in stage 2, but the risk and the finance team knows that it is not correct, it can move to back to stage 1, so they can manually override that with a complete audit trail. And this then gets further feeded into the overall ECL engine. Now, once we feed this information on the ECL engine, then comes the EAD. Now, EAD, basically your exposure at default. Again, there could be various ways which can be used to estimate or arrive at your EAD values. For example, for your retail exposures, you might be doing some sort of prepayment or a behavioral analysis. So what is the behavioral analysis? All your prepayment models, those should be hosted onto the platform in order to arrive at your EAD estimates. Similarly, on the corporate side, it would be more around your cash flow adjustment. So the platform should give you both banks where, or the financial institutions where the ALM system is already implemented. Over there, we can use the cash flows generated by the ALM system. Where the ALM system is not implemented at the bank's end, then to generate the cash flows for the future periods, the platform which the bank is choosing to do the IFRS 9 automation should provide the capability. This further then goes into the key important area, which is your probabilities of default. Now we know that for IFRS 9, there are 2 set of PDs which is needed. One is your lifetime PDs and one is your 12-month PD. So all your stage one assets are required to estimate the expected credit losses for 12 months. For that, you need a 12-month PD. And similarly for stage two and stage three, where you need a lifetime PD estimation over there, the lifetime expected credit loss estimation over there, the lifetime PD is arrived at. Now, in order to do this, the first step is basically is your calibration of your through the cycle PDs to point in time PDs, and then generating the overall lifetime PD term structure. Now, in this area, without going into more details, there are different choices of methodologies and approaches which are available for the end user, which the platform should provide as an option for the analyst to select and decide. Moving to the next component, which is your loss given default. Essentially out here, there could be again multiple set of approaches with regards to your workout LGD, your recovery analysis, your Bayesian approach, or a decision tree based approach, and so on and so forth. Now out here, I've shown that how in each of these different areas, what are the various data elements which could be needed, that is also being captured. So which means the platform not only needs just the computing power, but also needs a end-to-end seamless data integration capabilities as well. Moving ahead, all of this, the entire ECL computations is feeded into the overall regulatory provision computation, your impairment charges computation, and which gets further feeded to the overall the disclosure requirements. We know that IFRS 9 comes with its own set of huge the financial disclosures which needs to be presented to the regulator, to the investors, and to the senior management. So that's the last part, which basically takes care of the entire reconciliation and the overall reporting. Now, basically, when we talk about an IFRS 9 platform, these are the 7 key areas and the second level of details which we need to basically keep in mind while arriving at the right methodology. So now moving ahead, essentially, let us try to capture what are the expectations of the different, the stakeholders. So the first there are 3 different users, essentially, or the key stakeholders. One is the chief risk officer, so primarily representing the risk department. The second is your CFO, representing your finance department. And third is, which is an interlinked, is your regulatory reporting department. Now, the expectation of the CRO, who basically could be very different than from the CFO office. The reason for that, in majority of the banks, like the PD, LGD, and the EAD components, which goes as an underlying input to the entire expected credit loss computations, those are being driven from the CRO office, whereas the reporting, the disclosures, the classification and measurement of the exposures, that is being driven primarily by the CFO or the regulatory department office. So let us get into the details of how these individual users are looking for in terms of the platform. So basis our experience of the last 3 years, where we have met multiple stakeholders across the geographies, when we talk to any of the CRO, one of the most critical requirement, what we have heard from them is, what is that the platform is going to give me out of the box in terms of the comprehensiveness. So what these CRO is looking for is, I need a system basically which gives me all the possible set of methodologies which is applicable for PD estimation, for LGD, for EAD, and then I have the choice to decide which is the most righteous approach for me. Should I want to go for a regression approach for PD estimation, or I want to take a Trajan matrix based approach, or I want to go for an external benchmarking approach? Now, what are the various set of approaches which are firstly applicable for me? And then do I have an option in the system to select which is the approach I want to use and see the impact assessment? So what I want to take an example over here is, this is a complete overall ECL computational flowchart, which basically captures for a corporate portfolio that in order to arrive at an ECL at an account level, you need to do the estimation of your PDs, your LGDs, and your EADs. Now, what we have tried to showcase out here that all these blue boxes which are appearing, These are nothing but the choices of methodologies which are available for a corporate portfolio. So a CRO is looking for to understand that if I use a regression versus a Z-score approach, and instead of a binomial versus a maturity adjustment approach, how my PD term structures or my lifetime PDs will look like, and how much then it further translates into your ECL. So this is the what you say, the kind of the complexity which lies underneath or behind the scenes, which every risk department is trying to solve. Now the point here is, in order to estimate just the PD in this flow, you can see there are 3 and 4. So basically there are 12 combinations or 12 possible options which I as a risk analyst could explore. Now, having said that, in the real life scenario, no bank would explore more than 3 or 4 choices of approach or the methodology, right? But the point is, the platform should take care of that all these different set of methodologies are pre-baked, which allows the freedom for the CRO to select any of the approach and move ahead. The other thing is, like when I talk about individual approaches, right, there could be different set of models, right? Within regression, I can have different models, like model A could be based on your oil prices, model B could be based on your uh, unemployment rate, GDP, and so on, correct? So what are my champion models and what are challenger models? Can I select any of these models and see the impact on my ECL? So basically the power to select, decide, and execute, this is what is the need of a risk department. Now moving on to the second aspect is, which is your self-service capability. Now when we talk about automation, right, the majority of the times where we have heard from the CROs is that for every small change which is going in my underlying assumption or which is going in my methodology, I have to go through a very long business cycle, which means I have to first go back to my IT stakeholders. IT stakeholders understand my requirement. They go back to the vendor. The vendor say, okay, fine, this is a change request for me. Can you, in order to achieve this, this is the extra amount of dollars which you need to pay, and then accordingly my team will going to make changes. It goes back to the UAT where the business user will say, okay, fine, I'm okay with the changes, and then they will use it. Essentially, a small change which could be done maybe in days time, it goes through a cycle of like weeks, which means the risk department ends up using a lot of manual approximations. They end up using Excel toolkits in order to do a lot of what ifs, which they are not able to do it in the system. So the platform should not be what we call is hardwired, is what is the expectation of the CRO. Now, let me take an example. For example, what you are able to see on the screen is the overall business rule which is being written for performing the stage assessment. Now you can see somewhere it's written that if it is stage 1, then happens this. If it is stage 2, then it happens like that. Now, if you're expecting that the business user or the functional user will come and modify this, obviously that's not happening in this life. Nobody without having a coding knowledge can make changes to it. But if there is a view like this, where you have provided the capability that the entire formulas can be broken into the functional components, that becomes very clear, right? That if my rating is greater than 19, it is stage 3. I might change this formula by a simple if else statement, right? The way we write it in our, what do you say, in an Excel. So if the platform is basically providing the capability to make all the changes which a business user is looking for, then that's the need of the hour. So the self-service is what the is the key requirement. And the third is the modeling capability. Now, when we talk about IFRS 9, a lot of model comes along with it, which means your PD, LGD, AD models for your corporate portfolios, for your retail portfolios, for your investment portfolios, which needs to be developed. Now, does the user is expected to go develop a model somewhere, for example, using analytical languages like R or Python or SAS, and then ingest the output of those models in the platform. That is for option one. But the CROs is looking for is a completely integrated platform. So what they mean is that the model development, the model execution, and the final output reporting and analysis is being done in a seamless manner on a same platform. So I don't have to go and basically log in into the another system, develop my model, bring it back to the system, and basically spend a lot of time in doing the integration between the two different the system at the bank's end. Why can't I have one unified platform which takes care of the entire the model development configuration capability at the bank's front? So that's the area. The another area is then moving on with is the CFO requirements. Now, the expectation of a CFO or the finance department from the platform is very different. The first is every period, right? We essentially, do the generation of the ECL outputs. So, for example, I, as an end user, have done the computation of my expected credit losses as of June 2021. And then I have another ECL as of September 2021. Now, why my ECL is changing? What is leading to the change in the PD? Is it PD which is the key contributing factor? Is it the LGD? So the answers to those, that what are the underlying delta contributing factors, is the area where the finance team spends a lot of time. So what they're looking for is, can I have an automated detailed attribution analysis coming from the platform? Now over here, what I want to explain that, for example, there is an expected credit losses of one period, which is of $50. There is another expected credit losses, for example, for September 2021, which is of $69.3 million. Now, there is a change in the overall ECL by $19.3 thousand in the ECL, which is almost close to 40% increase. Now, we know at the face of that the PD has changed. There is a change in the LGD. There is a change in the EAD. But the question is whether is it the PD, is it the LGD, or is it the EAD, which is the key contributing factor? So in the industry, there are two terms which are very interchangeably be used very carelessly, which is your variance analysis and the attribution analysis. These two terms have a completely two different meanings. Now, what I mean by variance analysis, that your PD is changing by 5%, which is represented by 1.05%, whereas your LGD is changing by 10% and EAD is changing by 20%, like from $10,000 to $12,000. Now, by looking at this analysis, can you tell me that my ECL of $19.3 thousand or 40% increase in the ECL, is it changing because there is a change in 20% in the EAD, or is it because of the LGD change of 10%? Now, the answer of this lies much more in the next level of details. A variance analysis cannot answer that whether it is the PD or is it the LGD which is leading to that change in the ECL. So what we do over here is we go to the underlying attribution analysis. Now, what is the attribution analysis is taking care of? With the same example, with the ECLA of 50 and the ECLB of 69.3, let us first talk about that there are three contributing factors. Now, if I just change the PD and re-execute the entire expected credit losses, what is the ECL I get to arrive at? It becomes 52.5. If I change the LGD and recompute the entire ECL, it becomes 55. And if I change just the ED and recompute everything, it becomes 60. Now, obviously, if I change PD and LGD together, then what is the component, the delta contribution if I change the PD and EAD together, and similarly LGD and EAD together? Now, at each and every node, there is a probability which gets associated with it. So out here, we know how the PD, LGD, AD, and the joint interaction of the PD and LGD is basically contributing towards the change in the ECL. So looking at this, we know that what is actually the delta contribution by the PD, LGD, AD, and I know that, okay, fine, the EAD change is leading to the majority of the change in the ECL. So the overall ECL change of $19.3 thousand that is being attributed by $2.5 thousand by PD, LGD, and EAD. And this is very different than what we were looking at in the previous screen of variance analysis. Now, how this is being calculated? So essentially, there are three components, which is your PD, LGD, AD, which is represented by the F. So 2 to the power 3, which is leads to 8, is the total number of executions which I need to do, which means I need to change PD, execution 1. I need to change LGD, execution 2. I need to change EAD. I need to change PD, LGD, both, and so on. So overall, you see there are 8 boxes. This is nothing but the 8 computations we are referring to. But the execution of June 2021 and the execution of September 2021 is available with me, right? Basically, these are the two I'm comparing with. So basically, there are 6 intermediate computes which needs to be taken care of. And what we mean by here is it requires a massive computation power. When I'm talking of millions of cash flow records, right? Ultimately, our entire ECL gets calculated under, or what we say, at a cash flow level. So when I'm running this huge changes by changing each and every parameter at a cash flow level, I'm demanding a huge computing power. So this is where the what do you say, the design of the platform and the requirement of the platform becomes really important. The other important aspect is from the CFO office is that can you basically when the risk team is presenting the results to the finance team, and the risk team says, I have, for example, GDP as a factor which is leading to the change in my macroeconomics, right? The CFO says, I think for my credit cards portfolio, unemployment rate plays an important role. Can you tell me, if I have a model based on unemployment rate, what could be my ECL? Or for example, if this customer instead of stage 2 moves to stage 3 or moves to stage 1, what would be my ECL? So the answer of this is what, or basically the requirement is on the what if analysis. And let me show you this with the help of what you see a small what you see a screen which is there at my end. Let me just bring it up. So we have our own what you say developed in-house platform to meet the requirements of the entire IFRS 9. And what I wanted to basically show you here is, firstly, is that can I do various set of what if? So in terms of the various approaches which you want to select, in terms of the various computations which you want to run, can I select any of those different set of approaches from the front end itself? Like for LGD, I might have a Fry-Jacobs approach versus something else. Similarly, for my what do you say, for macroeconomic overlay. Similarly, for my PD, I can have different set of approaches. So that is the first thing. The another thing is, which is the need of the hour, is that can I run various set of model what ifs? So for example, let me show you something. When I talk about regression, right, there could be different regression models which could be available at the bank end, right? And now what these regression models look like for forecasting your PDs is that, suppose this is your model, which is based on oil prices, GDP, and inflation. Basically, this is a logistic regression functional form of the model. Now, CFO says, you're sitting in a presentation, you're presenting it to the board, and CFO or the senior management talks about that, I believe maybe unemployment plays a major role. Can you tell me if I have a model like that? So for example, you create a model and you say, this is the model which I've created right now. And suppose this is a challenger model CC. You create this model, the model gets created on the fly. And if you are able to basically execute then and there during the presentation and understand the downstream impact on your ECL, that's what the automation, basically the purpose from the automation gets achieved. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to select the same set of approach, which is regression. And if you see, this is the model, challenger model CC is what we have created right now. I can basically select this model, run my computations, and understand how it is translating into my final expected credit losses. So how my PD is getting estimated. I also have a comparison, for example, a PIT-PD versus a TTC-PD comparison. So based on this model, I know what the PD in a particular grade going to look like in the next 12 months. So this is an important area which becomes the need of the hour when you talk to any finance team, that what they are looking for in terms of from the system. Moving on to the next is the another important aspect is that everything and anything on the system cannot take huge amount of time. So the most of the systems which are available in the market, we have heard from the various CFOs that they take like 36 hours, they take 24 hours or 15 hours to do one ECL computation. So if we are talking about running any what if analysis, essentially on the quarter ends, on the month ends, they don't have that much of time or the luxury at their end that they can do that. In order to basically manage it, what they want a system is which takes basically 1/10 of the time of what they're taking right now. So what I mean by that, if a system is taking 36 hours, they don't want a system like that. People want a system which can do the generation of the results in near real time. So the computation part is the next important area. Another thing is basically, can my team himself take care of the entire what do you say, customization of the reports? Can they amend the reports directly from the UI? If I have to create a new report, do I need to go every time back to the vendor in terms of the underlying changes of the data model? Do I need to pay extra dollars in order to get a new report? Or can I have a report and a visualization designer at my own end? Can my team take care of it? Because it is important to note that the IFRS 9 regulations are still evolving, right? Uh, every year we see there are new changes, new rigor, and new requirement which comes from the regulatory point of view as well as from the management point of view. So does the system is going to help me out in achieving that? That's the another expectation from the CFO office. The another is that how the platform can meet my requirements today. Nobody, no CFO is looking for a system tomorrow. And we know like that the majority of the systems take time in the implementation. Whereas a CFO department is looking for that, can there be a system which can solve my automation requirements in the need today? So I'm not looking for a system which goes for 6 months of a cycle for implementation. I'm looking for a system which goes for like 5 days, 5 weeks or 6 weeks of cycle at max. So basically in 2 months of time, the system should be up and running and my team should be able to use it. The another and the last part from the CFO concern is that there is a new change. For every single change, do I need to go back to the vendor, or I can do with my own IT team's capability or the functional team capability? So again, it goes back to the same point, which is from the CRO's expectation also, that do I have a self-service capability on the platform? The another thing is, for example, we talk about a related requirement in the area of IFRS 9 is your stress testing. Now we know that stress testing has to work in a very integrated manner on the IFRS 9 underlying data, which means if there is a very similar new regulation, do I need to go and implement a new system? We don't realize, but there is a huge cost of IT infrastructure, technology burden, which the banks are going through with. And how the CFO and the basically everybody in the bank are trying to now move is in the direction that how we can solve this problem by having maybe one platform or two platform which solves the majority of my business use cases which I have on my plate. So how I can generate the right expected ROI from the platform, that is the another requirement. Now let's go ahead and understand the requirements from the regulatory reporting team. Now, the first requirement which comes from the reporting team is they're not looking for a black box. And when we talk about any audit or any, what you say, the regulatory inspection, the majority of the time is being spent upon is to understand what is running essentially in the underlying logics. We can see the output, we know the input, but we don't know how the output is being generated on this underlying data set, how the data is connected with this entire execution pipeline. So the first requirement is, can we have the complete transparency from the system? It should not be a black box. It should give us a complete details of what is happening on the behind the scenes. So let me show you this with the help of what do you say, the platform what we have, just to resonate the idea what the regulatory team is looking at. So what this screen is basically trying to present that visually. For example, let's talk about LGD. So there is a haircut based approach. Now what this do is it basically estimates the haircut, applies it on the collateral, and adjusts it against the exposure to calculate the final LGDs. Now you can see there are various sequencing of these steps. At the first step, we are trying to identify what is the applicable haircut. At the step second, we are trying to identify what is the amount of exposure covered and what is the unsecured exposure. And then we are trying to apply what is the LGD at an individual facility level. Now I can go drill down at each and every step and understand what is the underlying data which is being used, what are the formulas, what are the joints which have been applied at. So this is the kind of the requirement which is there, or this is the ask which is there from the reporting team or from the audit team. So for example, I can go and I can see that these are the attributes or the underlying data. These are the formulas. So like this is my haircut formula. I can further drill down. I can also know what are my left joints running in, what are my VLOOKUPs essentially, and so on and so forth. So this is one of the key asks when you go and talk to any reporting requirement guy. The other thing is the approval workflows. Now we know there is a lot of things which goes manual overrides on the platform, right? For example, I'm overriding the stages of the customer. So how the stage of customer one, which is sitting in stage two, how that gets basically moved from stage two to stage one. Now, anybody can do that, right? But who has the access? But there has to be a complete overall approval workflow process, which allows that there is no incorrect data being used in the underlying computations. Also, somebody has not made any errors while loading such manual overrides. So there has to be a complete audit trail which captures who has loaded when a particular manual override data, who has approved it, and so on and so forth. So that's the second ask. The third is essentially the data interconnectedness. That how do I know if I want to drill down from my reports, can I drill down and see if my ECL of $100,000 has been generated, how those $100,000 are being arrived at. These are the 20,000 accounts, and how these 20,000 accounts are generating that ECL. Can I see that entire data interconnectedness? Can I know that how the final report is being generated? What was the underlying data as of what date it has been used? So basically the overall pipeline of the data lineage is what the regulatory reporting team wants to understand at. Now, if I have to summarize the entire expectations of the key stakeholders across the what do you say, the need from the what do you say, the automation selection process. So the banks are sitting in either of the three buckets at the moment. There are financial institutions which are largely using certain Excel toolkits which have been developed by in-house teams or by the external vendors. Now, obviously, the Excel comes with its own limitations and with its own advantages, that the business users know how to use the Excel, etc. So there is no training which is needed. But the constraints which comes in, it's completely prone to manual errors. It cannot manage large data sets. You cannot run various set of what ifs. It's a completely manual computation which is being run. There is no way you can manage your entire reporting in an automated manner or run various set of attributions or model what ifs or scenario what ifs in an Excel toolkit. So the Excel toolkits is fine when the banks are in their first year of implementation, for example, which was back in 2018 and 19. Now, standing as of today, this is something which most of the banks have already scrapped. They've either moved to just strategic solution, or they are in the phase of moving to the strategic solution implementation. The second thing is, which is the automation using certain tactical toolkits. What we mean by that, this is the toolkits which actually live somewhere in between the two. So they provide partial automation to the end users. They provide partial capabilities of the data streaming, partial capabilities of managing data qualities, partial capabilities of running various set of ECL execution. These are being essentially homegrown developed toolkits by in R or Python. So they are not the righteous approach because they are not stable, they are not scalable. They only solve your limited purpose of maybe the computation, but your purpose of transparencies, your purposes of drill downs, your purposes of your visualizations, reporting, etc. Those are not being achieved by these toolkits. So ideally, the banks who might have invested in this, sooner or later, they will have to reinvest the entire money into a strategic solution, which is basically the end goal or the need of the hour. So the recommendation from our side is that if you're already on Excel, then you should directly move to a strategic solution. You should not take a three-step process, because you might invest money over here, you reinvest certain money over here, and again, you will reinvest money here. So the idea is that to go for the complete strategic solution, the need for it, why it becomes important, other than what I've already summarized in my previous slides, that IFRS 9 is a completely evolving regulation. So your requirements, which are today, they will evolve over the period. So the platform should be futuristic in nature. The platform should give you the capability to manage all those changes. When we talk about Excel or tactical toolkits, we always end up doing everything manual with a lot of approximation. So we should avoid making those mistakes when we are selecting the right automation partner. There is few state of banks who have already implemented these solutions, but which have left to the suboptimal automation. Now, what we mean by that is that, okay, fine, they have the solution and this is what their existing state looks like, which provides them with the ECL computation, which provides them with the overall reporting and integration. But the challenges where they face is they're not able to do the overall attribution analysis. They're not able to do the overall what if analysis, both at the scenario level, at the underlying business rule assumption level, at a model level, at a formula level. The reports are not customizable. Every time they have to go and make a change, they have to go back to the vendor and spend millions or like thousands of dollars. And obviously, they are not able to provide them the required computation power, which means they do the computation with a lot of approximation manually outside the platform. So this should not be the case when you're looking for the right automation partner, that it leads to you to a sub-optimal automation and optimization. We should avoid doing that. Now, summarizing the key requirements, basically the platform should have the self-service capability. It should give you the capability to do the automated attribution analysis. It should give the capability basically to do the entire drill down from the results to the underlying data, provide complete transparency on the underlying computation logics. The platform should be very comprehensive in nature, which should cater all the requirements of your accounting and expected credit losses, which is needed for IFRS 9. The platform should be very interactive in nature, that the user should not be doing any sort of coding. They should do everything from the UI of the platform, from the user interface. The platform should be futuristic in terms of its infrastructure requirement. It should be cloud native platform, because we know now the technology is moving towards the cloud, And the reason for that, it is more what do you say, cost effective. I know that IFRS 9, I'm not going to use 30 days in a month. I'm going to use this platform maybe 5 days in a month. So why do I invest in a hardware and keep those infrastructures lying, empty and not being used by any user? Rather, I'll use that infrastructure for the remaining 25 days when it is idle on some other requirement. That is only feasible when my platform is both capable of on-premise as well as a cloud hosting platform. And obviously, the last part is the overall data management. The data model should be very effective. It should be capable enough to manage the overall ever-changing requirements from the reporting and the computation side. So this is what we would like to summarize in terms of the overall requirements. And thank you for your time. Thank you for hearing us. And we would like to make the session open for any sort of, questions which you might have for us.
Would you be able to make me host, Vivek?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So once again, it is open for you, all the participants. Thank you so much for your continued presence. If you have any questions, queries, doubts, please raise. I hope Vivek's effort had been useful to make the essence communicated to you. Looks like there is no question from anyone else. Meantime, let me bring so I think there is a question. Does the system allow use of a model, the PDLGD? I think the question here is we need to clarify that.
So which are basically the platform
both happens.
Yeah, the platform allows you to do both, and any platform, not just the platform which Cognext is basically providing. Any platform should provide you the capability to develop PD-LGD-AD models as a part of the same platform, and then basically translate that into the underlying ECL impact, that how it is moving into that direction. The another question is, do you offer PD modeling development? Yes, we definitely do that. And maybe we might have your email address, and accordingly, we can connect after the webinar and take this ahead.
In fact, we do all PD, LGD, EAD, the entire modeling, or any kind of advisory services which are required, we can take up. I mean, we have that end-to-end ability. There are a few more questions. My bank, MGN Emperor Bank. Okay, we have got a message, not a question. Yeah, so the repeat question is whether we can import PDLGD and execute.
Yes, so we definitely provide both the capabilities, which is with regards to either you can develop the PD inside the model, or you have your own PD LGD estimates, you can import that in the system and use it for the computation purposes. The another thing is, the another question, does the system...
You just answered, I think you have to repeat.
No, the another is, does the system allow manual adjustments or no? Not. So yes, the system allow the manual adjustment. It allows you to manage and maintain the entire audit trail also on the platform if you are basically loading any manual data in order to ensure that. So platform has its own data integration layer. Sorry, to answer the question, how to link to core banking to generate the cash flows of the EAD. So the platform has its own, the data integration layer, which allows it for, 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 the data integration la integration with the core banking system, from where we can fetch the data of the cash flows and generate the EADs by adjusting that against the exposure values. The another thing is the platform also has its own cash flow generation engine, where basically for all the deals and the facilities which are there in the portfolio of the bank, we would need the prepayment details, we would need the product, what do you say, the characteristics, the repayment frequencies, the interest rate components, in order to generate the cash flows. So the platform has its own cash flow engine also, which can be leveraged in order to generate that.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was really interesting. Good to receive so many questions and queries. Now that we are concluding, we just have 4 to 5 minutes to go. Let me bring in Mr. Sochit Son of Softflix Solution into the discussion. Softflix Solution is our local partner in Cambodia. They are a sales partner and implementation and service partner too. We have been jointly approaching the Cambodian market for our expert services and software solution.
Yeah.
Sochit, who is, I think James is himself is instrumental in reaching and inviting all the customers today. James, would you like to take this opportunity to thank the customers, tell them about a little more about your thoughts about risk management solutions, Cognext, and your views? And then we will go to another question which is still pending.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Keda, and also the team from Mr. Vivek. And hello, everyone. And thank you so much for joining this call. So let me take this opportunity to quick introduction from my side. My name is James. I work as the business development of the Softflix solution. Actually, Softflix, we provide the technology solution and also IT service consulting for financial industry, such as a bank, microfinance, and also the other sector over 15 years of experience. Actually, our core value, we providing an enterprise backend system and fintech's digitalization platform to help our customer to grow faster in the digitalization eras and also stay competitiveness. And we have a product and solution offering to the bank and microfinance like core banking platforms, next generation of regulatory technology platform like IFRS 9 solution, dalasel, and risk management platforms. And also we have the financial crime platform that we can implement for 2 different solutions. One is the AML solution and the other one is the fraud solution. And also we provide digital banking platforms, mobile banking, internet banking, and digital lending solution. And also the other product like enterprise analytics platform also. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Keda and Mr. Vivek.
Yeah, thanks. I think
thank you so much.
Customers can locally reach out to you and me too. There are 2 questions which are pending. First is about costing. I think we can discuss costing one-on-one, not in an open platform. So we have received 1 inquiry which we will pursue, myself and Sochit. Second is Softflix solution in Cambodia is a question, yes, which is already answered by James right now. Softflix is based in Phnom Penh, right, James, your office?
Yes, Mr. Keda. Actually, we start the business. We plan to extend the office to Laos and Myanmar, but the COVID situation, so that's why we still remain office only in Phnom Penh. And
All right. Okay. So that's how we are entering to the closure of this session now. Thank you so much for all bankers who have joined from all the way from Cambodia and stayed interested till the session gets closed. And thank you for your participation. And we look forward for more interaction with you. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Vivek, Keda, and also customer. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm closing the session now. Thanks and bye-bye.